Welcome to the 10X Blueprint Podcast, your guide to unlocking 10X growth through AI, AR, and Web3. Join Simone Knight, billion-dollar media strategist and founder of Brandiverse Marketing, for discussions with industry leaders about harnessing the power of tomorrow's technologies today. Let's step into the Brandiverse. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10X Blueprint Podcast. My name is Simone Knight, and I am your host. Today, we have a great conversation headed your way. Today, my special guest is none other than Adam Rajnoha. Hi, Adam. How are you?
Hey, Simone. Great to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us on the 10X Blueprint Podcast. So today, we are going to be talking about augmented reality and immersive experiences. We're going to be talking about geospatial technology, CGI, AI, AR, VR, everything that is all about the future of consumer experiences and making the space that we're in more interactive. So basically turning our 2D web experiences into 3D experiences, right? Who knows what it'll be in the future. So let me introduce you properly, Adam. So Adam Rajnoha is a leading figure in the dynamic world of virtual and augmented reality. As a VR and AR strategist and XR entrepreneur, Adam's achievements include collaborations with industry giants such as Apple, Adidas, Niantic, and Deloitte. Currently, Adam is the co-founder and CEO at YORD, where he spearheads the adoption of innovative solutions such as the transition of physical experiences into the virtual and augmented reality sphere. Under his leadership, YORD has become a leading global VR, AR, and Metaverse studio with operations spanning the US, UAE, and the Czech Republic. The studio is renowned for its high-end immersive experiences and its provision of expert consulting experiences to businesses of venturing into the immersive reality space. Awesome. I cannot wait to have this discussion with you, Adam, today. So you are based in the Czech Republic.
Well, it's a tricky question because I really think about it as a global studio. So we are based all over the place. But the truth is that the headquarters are in Czech Republic, Europe, very central in the heart of Europe. I think like Prague as a city has even like a bigger resonance with the people than Czech Republic itself. We are based here, especially our development, and the reason is quite simple. And that's it, that we have amazing resources when it comes to the developers and designers and combined for the XR space. Because the XR is based on gaming, right? And the Czech Republic has a huge history of being early pioneer in the gaming. That's the reason that we can offer this world-class quality, but still for, to say, like reasonable conditions. And maybe just to mention Beat Saber, which is the most successful game in the virtual reality up to date, is coming from Prague, from Czech Republic. So yeah, that's just an example.
Well, I definitely know and love Beat Saber. My family and I, we play it, and I'm not as good as my teenage daughter is. The first time I played it was really hilarious to watch. I always do this fun thing with my guests to get a chance for my audience to learn a little bit more about you before we get into the conversation. So I just want to do some fun rapid fire questions with you before we get into it, right? So
go.
What are your favorite places in Prague, and why should I go there and experience them?
Well, my favorite places are the places which are like, in a way, no touristy, right? Like for the locals, I think it's always that you go for those secret places, like actually where we are based. It's a really, really nice area. It's called Karlin. It's kind of a Silicon Valley of Prague. If you want to put that, like a lot of startups, nice cafes, and in general, like very innovative, great vibe. But if we actually have a couple of clients from the US, and they are very intrigued always. Actually, we are discussing with one of the clients that they will come for a workshop on site to Prague because they love the city. So we will definitely hit some well-known spots, but then we will go also for some secret spots that Prague has to offer.
Secret spots in Prague. Yes, I'm ready to sign up. Let's go. Okay. If you could use your technology to enhance the experience at any iconic global landmark or location in the world, which would it be and why?
That's a beautiful question. I would definitely aim for two types of landmark. The first one is for something that is just very, very populated and touristy and has like high density of people per meter square. Let me go with Times Square in New York. And the reason is quite simple, because you want to have these masses to be able to experience that, right? You want to have that experience being leveraged by multiple people at once in one locations, because then you can really play around with what they're going to see, what kind of gamification you want to bring into that, so on and so forth. The second location, I would go for something very remote, because we have this huge thing that people often think about XR, virtual reality and augmented reality as something that goes against like our own reality, right? Like they always think like, oh my gosh, like my kids, they're gonna sit in the headset all day, we'll be just staring to those screens. You remember how our mom said like, hey, don't sit close to the TV, and now you have this, goggles that you won't even see. Like, so now it's like literally like this far away from my eyes. But what I'm trying to say is that I believe in my ultimate kind of vision of the future. Like this technology should enhance our understanding of the world, of the nature, of a digital layer that we are building as a society, although that right now it's more, per to say, invisible to the eye, but it's becoming more and more connected to the world that we live in. So something in the nature, something distant, like let's go for a Machu Picchu or something like that, right? Or let's go for something even like more distant, like to just show, for example, some nice possibilities of navigation, of contextual information, of all these spots. These kind of two things, and I would love to show.
Okay, so you would do an experience at some place very densely populated so that most people can see it. So you said Times Square. It's funny, when you said that, I was actually thinking Taj Mahal for some reason. That's what came into my mind.
Also amazing, yeah.
That would be cool, right? And then the second place is someplace remote, Machu Picchu. Really, I love the way you think those are really picturesque, big areas. Like you said, maximum impact in terms of the visuals that you can have there with an XR experience. Now, I'm sure as I'm saying the word XR, some people are probably wondering what XR means. So we're going to get into that conversation. What are some of these terms that Adam just threw out so that everyone understands? Now, here's the other question for you. So you've been CEO for a while now and you've started YORD. What year did you start YORD?
So we started YORD in 2019. It has been like 5 years of us being on this journey of becoming like the global leader. So it's been pretty exciting.
Okay, so now here's my question, because I've seen some of the activations that you've done, which are pretty exciting to watch. And I would like to ask, what has been the most rewarding moment of your career so far? Been on this journey to get to the point where you're now co-founder of a leading AR, XR, VR agency, right? What has been one of those most rewarding moments of your career on this journey so far?
I think there are, per to say, like different streams of those rewards that happen over the time. And I would like maybe select them into like, per to say, two categories, like for myself at least. And then the first one, it's kind of business related. So I think one of the most rewarding moments is when we were like a small studio of 2 people or 3 people starting very early on. We were just like dreaming of those like big cooperation and accounts, but we kind of like take it like, hey, this is where we're going and this will happen right over time. And now if we manage to like some of the major world-class projects, that's a hugely rewarding moment for the whole team and for myself as a CEO, because like that journey, and for every entrepreneur, the journey is rather, per to say, like negative or positive, or you are actually facing more no's than yeses, if you know what I mean. So you are actually facing like the setbacks after setbacks after setback. That's like a continuous journey of an entrepreneur. And it's still on. I really appreciate if we actually managing to getting those like the biggest project in the world, and we can execute on that and we can work on those. That's a huge reward. And the second one is just a reflection of the team. Like you have some people in the team, we have very stable, like the base team that has been growing with us since today. A lot of these people we hired like after the university, and you see how they went through this transformation from being, where to say, like in their some junior positions or some intern position to actually becoming those leaders in these different areas. And to see those people grow, it just also makes you really proud. And that's like the second stream of where I see those rewards coming in.
That's great. I mean, the journey of an entrepreneur can always be bumpy and difficult, and hopefully it is rewarding after that, right? So I love what you're saying about the people and seeing the people on your team develop over time. And also when you're at a point where you're able to get and execute on the biggest opportunities to show your XR experiences to the world. I love that. I love that. So I just asked the question about this journey to get to where you are now as founder and CEO of YORD. So I want to go back in time. I love to ask this question about first jobs, because I believe that your first job is a window into who you are today as a leader. So what was your first paying job
If I go really back in time, I helped a lot my father with his business. He was like in the reconstruction business. It was like, per to say, acquiring some older buildings and investing into reconstruction and just like making it a little better and then put it back to the market. And that for me was like definitely something that I took like the early inspiration. And because you see that your parents or your father is being like entrepreneur, that's so it's kind of motivating. And it's also like seeing the process of taking something which has potential and transforming it to that full potential. So that's something what I love. And it's just like the house or the building is just a perfect example of that. What we are also doing in per to say New York, just we are looking at different things that we believe has like utmost potential and then just transforming or just realizing that full potential. And that has been with me since the very early days. And then my like first paying jobs, I started for different corporates. So I worked for Nestle, I worked for GlaxoSmithKline in different brand managerial, junior brand managerial roles and communication marketing roles. So that was my early starts. And afterwards, I had a chance to work for a startup called Smart Assistant. At that time now it's called Zuvu. They recently finished their round C. So they are like pretty successful scale up currently. And I had a chance with them, like on their behalf, to spend some time in the US. And that was a huge inspiration because, you know, in the US, especially in the Silicon Valley and in those hubs, like you can feel and see, hey, this is going to be the next thing. This is going to be the next innovation. You have this like very entrepreneurial mindset, which was very inspirational to me as well. And I was doing the business development at that role. So it had like a huge impact on how I see the business, right? Like I see a business I'm very like sales/marketing oriented person. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the business. And this is also like the value we are trying to bring to our customers, because we are not that studio that is like, hey, we will develop the experience for you, but we are just trying to understand first your business needs. We are trying to understand what you are trying to solve. And then we see that if immersive technologies are the way to solve it. And sometimes they are not. So this is more like complex approach that we want to offer to our clients and our partners than just saying, hey, let's give us experience and we'll develop it. So of course, it's not always possible in a way, because sometimes you have like very clear structured project already put into order by the client. But sometimes when it's possible, we're trying to also look at it from the business perspective.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that your first job was actually working with your father, right, in the construction business. And that was where you are working on turning nothing into something. Right? That is the construction. You're building and creating something, which is remarkably similar to what you are doing now.
You know, I'm working right now in a tangible physics, whereas in the construction industry, you have this kind of elements that are pretty tangible, like bricks, like behind me.
But you have to turn bricks into a structure, right? You have the components, but you have to turn it into something. And to me, that's what you are doing in the XR space, is that you are basically recreating an image or turning something from one thing into another thing. It's in this transitory state. So I think my theory still holds true that your first job really does give a window into who you are today. All right. So let's get into it. Let's talk some more about VR, AR, XR, CGI, and geospatial technology. First of all, I want you to define some of these terms. What is XR? What is the difference between XR, AR, and VR?
Well, our field is full of definitions and abbreviations, and that's sometimes what I think makes it crazy for people to understand. I completely get it, because it's just like so many of those, but I will try to make it as easy as possible in a way. So if you imagine you have an umbrella, I would say like on the very top of it, it's something that we call XR, with the X being a letter that you can change different other letters, such as AR, VR, so on and so forth. So this XR is kind of like covering all those terms. We also call it like extended reality, immersive reality, that actually covers the whole, in a way, topic. Now, I make this a little bit trickier in a way that you have another two umbrellas, which are pretty much the same, in my opinion, because I believe if you really dig deep, there's a lot of marketing kind of fluffiness around that. And the one is Metaverse, which is presenting by Meta. And then we have a spatial computing that is presenting currently by Apple. So Apple, for example, they don't even call their headset like the mixed reality headset or the virtual reality headset, but they call it spatial computer in their name. And of course, that's for me more like the marketing word war. Of course, if you have someone that is just like keen on every word of the definition, they can argue, but if you really go into the structure of how it is adapted, those are similar terms. But let's take this middle umbrella that we have, which is XR, and look at those like the sub technologies that are under that. So augmented reality, as it is in the name of it, it augments the space around you. So it offers you this digital layer that is kind of connected to what you see. Great example, Pokemon Go. You are in the park, looking at the grass. Wow, there is a Pikachu running around. Catch it. So that's augmented reality. Then on the upper scale of immersiveness, so if you are working with a scale of immersiveness, then the second step or second stage is mixed reality. So per to say, you are interacting with a physical space with the overlay of full digital layers. The great example is Apple Vision Pro. So you are having the headset on, or for example, the Microsoft HoloLens glasses that understand contextually the space and offering you this extra digital layers of technology. And actually, that's a collider between VR and AR as is the mixed reality. And then you have this virtual reality where you are fully immersed into virtual environment. You are not depending on where you currently are, other than just don't bump into your TV or something, but like you are just in the fully virtual environment and you are experiencing quite a different world where you can define the laws of physics. You can do pretty much whatever you want. The best example is, I love to use like the movie references or some cultural references. So Ready Player, I think like that's the best example that is out there.
So I think that those are great places to start off. So just to sort of recap what you've said, XR is the term that covers all of these different types of technologies. So XR is the umbrella term, as you mentioned, for augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, and spatial computing, right? So that X is a generic.
Yeah, like the spatial computing, I would even, as I said, I would put it on the same level as XR. That's like the second umbrella, and Metaverse is the third, and they pretty much are all umbrellas that are like covering those terms. So you can imagine that kind of structure.
I think that that's good. And I love the examples that you gave. Ready Player One is a game I think a lot of people are familiar with to understand what VR means. It is that fully immersive space where you are not seeing your current surroundings at all. You have the goggles on and that's it. And you're interacting in this world, right? This metaverse in some case, right? You have the Apple Vision Pro, which is the mixed reality. So you have this layer of digital layered on top of actual reality, but you are interacting with that space.
Yeah, exactly. And as I mentioned, for the Apple, how they work with it, I think this is amazing because, per to say, Simone, you are an expert in this field. So for you to understand, like, from the marketing perspective, how important it is for those companies to fight for those terms. Just imagine that Apple would release a headset and they would say like, hey, we have amazing headset that will help you to get to the metaverse. That would not be possible. They would go against each other, like the marketing wise, because they would be just playing with Meta to kind of agree that the metaverse is the term. And they don't want to do that. Why that they would do that if they can, like in this early on? Well, there is a category of smartphones, which is well established. But in our industry, everything is just forming. And if your biggest competitor in that space or the leading company in that space rename itself to the Meta Group because they are building the future of metaverse, or then you as their competitor, you don't want to play along because it's not decided who's gonna be the leader. It's not decided how it's gonna go. So that's the reason why it can be quite confusing on the market in terms of what is the term to use. And metaverse and the spatial computing are those two umbrellas which are quietly like new terms, but they kind of mean, I guess, an XR because they're covering all of those technologies in a way.
I love that you sort of made that plain, that basically what we're doing is we're in the arms race of XR, right? We're in the arms race of extended reality right now for people to see which technology is going to be the primary technology that is adopted by the most users, right? So I would liken that back to the difference between DVDs and the transition from VHS to DVD. And then there was a space that some of us of a certain age may remember where they had the video disc where it was these very large DVDs. Basically, they were the size of a record. Do you remember that?
Yeah, you mean like just the tapes, like the big ones?
It wasn't just a tape. Oh my gosh. So you don't even know what I'm talking about. That's just how much that technology did not even take off. There was a space between when CDs and DVDs came out, and there were these large video discs, and they were the size of a record. I don't know. I was too young to, I think, realize what the difference in the technology was, but it didn't go anywhere. But this is where we are right now in this arms race in terms of technology to see which is it going to be spatial computing, Apple, or is it going to be the metaverse, Facebook, that is going to actually take off here and then usher us all into this next phase of standardized terms and devices.
I think like on the end of the day, maybe if I just can follow up on that, at the end of the day, it's going to be purchase both. They will just standardize the category somehow by bumping into each other and trying to fight over the users and over this future market. But what is important for us right now and for all the companies and all the people who are watching this podcast, what is important is that there was only Meta in a way, I kind of acknowledge as a strong player, right? But now we have this second giant that joined the battle. So I think that what matters, because you cannot have evolution within a strong competition. If you just follow some like basic nature principles by Darwin, right? Like you cannot have strong and fast evolution if you don't compete. Like that's how we are set up as a species in a way, and how the nature is set up. That's how it transforms. So I think that's really good to see that there is like second giant that like, hey, we are entering the space. And it's immediately obvious on how Mark Zuckerberg did like several recordings comparing the headsets and being directly communicating like on that Apple Vision Pro. And it really is obvious that for him, this is important topic and that he kind of take it very actively, and which is good for the industry. So I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. Let's go a little bit more into this now. So these technologies that you just talked about are really taking shape and picking up speed and momentum, and more people are starting to experiment. More and more companies are starting to experiment. And what I've seen, Adam, is that companies are using these to create these immersive experiences that allow people to interact with their product and their services and their locations in a way that has never happened before. So can you talk about maybe some of the cool activations that are happening in this space? For instance, I've seen that you've done this really cool thing. You mentioned Times Square earlier. I saw you did this really cool gamification activation in Times Square with a major mobile company where it was Christmas time and they had to collect these different items and put them into like a storefront and make like a Christmas decoration type thing. And you have people out there physically using their phones to move something in space, and it's completely spatial technology, right? But they stopped, they interacted, they played with the brand, they shared the content, they really put it out there on social media. And this is a whole nother level of quote unquote engagement in a brand. So can you talk a little bit more about some of the cool activations that you see in this space with geospatial technology and augmented reality, right? Where these two things meet and what people are doing.
Yeah, definitely. And before jumping to that, just to add two things, and that's how the brands in general, like the marketing exec and everyone who works in the field should look at it. I do have two things that are crucial. And the first is engagement of the users, as you mentioned. It's quite different. We know there are well studies that the human brain reacts not only different in virtual reality, which would make sense, but also when experiencing augmented reality interactions. So we know there are like different centers being activated. There is like a higher remembrance rate. Also for these AR experiences, the reason is simple. The brain understands that the object which is not in that space, you see that in that space. So for the brain, it's kind of new and it's trying to understand. So the user engagement. And the second thing, which is really important, it's a whole new communication stream marketing channel in a way that if you think about it, you have like the whole world and the cities and the landscapes for you to put there your content and interact with the users almost unlimited time, right? And let me just give you an example, and that also coming back to like what are some cool activations that we see. It's like Gorillaz AR concert in New York that was actually using the geospatial technology. So you went to Times Square with the help of a little firefly that was appearing in front of mobile. You just scan your surroundings. The mobile understood, okay, this is where I am. This is how I should set up the experience. And what was really cool is that you had like the whole Times Square covered all the buildings were covered by the digitized contact. So what the user looking at was, all these screens that you have at Times Square with like the branded advertising with a couple of seconds, like cost you thousands or ten thousands of dollars. So they had like all for themselves, just enjoying the Gorillaz concert where the main character was sitting just like over the stairs and on Times Square. And the other characters were all around the building. But just imagine that in that sense, while having this experience, they took the whole attention to that particular moment for that particular user, not paying a single dollar for those banners. And for them, it was a Gorillaz, right? They didn't necessarily seek to put attention on some commercials, so on and so forth, but like in a way, how they did it is that they put attention on themselves, on the most active when it comes to like number of out of on display commercials, put a focus on themselves. So this is something how the brand managers and the marketing departments can think about those technologies in a way that it offers them a new level of possibilities of, as you said, engagement with those users.
So let me just tap into that for a second. So you're saying, which is pretty funny because it sounds like the Gorillaz did some guerrilla marketing, right? Pun intended. So essentially, they used Times Square as their promotional space without having to pay Times Square promotional fees by using this geospatial technology to map the space with their phone and engage the viewer, the listener, the concert goer, their fans into this experience to transform one of the world's largest iconic spaces into a promotional platform for their concert, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, that's just purely amazing. And this is what those technologies like in the long term will have to offer. And if you think about it, purely rational perspective, right? Like just what you would pay for those space. What is the price you would pay to get every screen on Times Square?
Oh, I have an idea because my team has done more than one Times Square takeovers. So I know.
I definitely know you. I'm just like asking it on purpose because I know that a lot of people who will listen to this podcast interact with those. And I would be able to put up the price, which would be pretty massive, And then I ask him like, okay, so if I tell you like I will give you like the whole Times Square for just like a small percentage of the cost with extra interactions. And of course, then we can speak about, hey, the user needs a mobile, they need to go through a certain extra steps. So it's not like you go to the Times Square and you immediately see those things flying around you. But you are also very selective, right? Like, because you have seen like so many of those so many times that it's like the impact that they have on you is like fairly limited to the impact that it has when you have this kind of experiences where you have this kind of at least that longer focus time. And when we're speaking about like the younger generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, this is like a crucial because those guys, and it's decreasing over the time. It's different for millennials or baby boomers, Gen Alpha and Gen Z. And that's like the focus attention span that we have. And that just goes. And then if you have that chance to have that experience where they actually are willing to focus a bit more because it's something new and something going on and something to interact with and it feels somehow personalized, then that's a superior experience. And that's why we are saying those technologies of XR, spatial computing, are becoming like the future interface of the internet or of the web, right? So because it will just offer this new digital engagement, especially for those younger generation that are being born and raised with a high level of technology engagement and skill set. So if you mention it as well, that if you play the Beat Saber, right, it's different. We do a lot of conference. From time to time, we have like the smaller kids coming around and it's like, hey, for example, just visiting the parents in conference or something and just want to try the headset. Or we have also like some of our families and you can see like how super fast they are in adaptation. It's almost scary. It's like you don't understand how they can understand it so well. This is for me mind-blowing. I don't get it in a way how fast they can use that headset,
Well, they're basically born with the technology, right? So these kids being born now, they're born with AI. So let's be clear. They are born with artificial intelligence. They don't know anything different, these kids being born in these past couple of years. So they will grow up with AI assistants and co-pilots and helping them to write papers and answer questions, solve problems. And I know that some people have a lot of problem with that. Oh my God, our children are getting less and less intelligent. And it's not necessarily the case. They are learning to use a tool that is for them a tool. It is not a cheat. It is a tool for them because they've always had it. Just like we always had a hammer, they will always have AI. So when you talk about how these technologies are going to play out with the younger generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, it's pretty interesting. So talking about the implications. So I'm thinking about, for instance, travel and tourism. Okay. Travel and tourism. Think about cruise ships. Think about how these technologies can create another layer of experiences for the younger generation of these cruise ships where, you mentioned the Gorillaz concert before. Maybe they have like King Kong climbing on the cruise ships while it's in the middle of the ocean, and you're perhaps doing a scavenger hunt around using these technologies. Think about Disney. Think about going to Disney World, where Disney has this another layer of things that you can do to engage the younger audience, finding things around the property, or Universal Studios with Harry Potter. There's so many things that we can do to engage our audiences on a deeper level and really grab not only just the attention, but I think grab the imagination of what we are doing with these technologies, right? So what are some of I've seen recently, for instance, I think it's Maybelline has done some interesting activations in London with CGI. There's been North Face has done some cool things with CGI in London. You also have a handbag manufacturer brand, luxury handbag, that has done something in Paris. And I know I've seen these things all over social media, and people were thinking that they were real. Like, oh my God, how did they do that? How did they get handbags to turn into cars? Or how did Maybelline get an eyelash thing on the London bus? But it's CGI. So can you talk a little bit about CGI and some of these 3D billboards that people are seeing in China, which are actually not really 3D billboards? They're really computer generated images.
As you said, like the CGI is a huge trend right now. And in my eyes, it just shows what augmented reality will be about, right? Because like that's augmented reality. It's just augmented the space for you with like extra digital layer. The only thing how it differs is the visual fidelity. So this is like only thing that is different, which is it's the visual fidelity of it. It's perfect. And why it's perfect? Because it's staged, it's done. We are also working on for different brands right now, some amazing project that we will be releasing shortly. And everything is staged, everything is like prepared. You work a lot on the 3D models, on the setup, on the post-production. So it looks just like as real as possible. And like the people, when they see, they love it, they share it on our socials. But just imagine that this is that stage where we are getting with the augmented reality. So it's just giving you, that's a trailer, the CGI is a trailer for what augmented reality will be about. And what we are waiting for is just like the hardware to get a bit better, the processing power, the visual, to say, power. So there's like a lot of hardware challenges that when we're speaking about the pure infrastructure and setup of those glasses and then devices that we need to have over time. But I think like that's why we are lucky to be in an age where these technologies, complementary technologies, are boosting this power of solving those issues and problems, for example, of this infrastructure, of those limitations of devices like an AI. So the CGI is just a huge, huge, huge trend, which I think when the companies jump on it, like what we have seen and also what we execute with partners, they're just amazing return on investment in the terms that when it's done properly, then you can see like some amazing engagement on those posts, on those social media posts, because just people love it. They love it. And that's also why brands should be so interested in augmented reality, because this is ultimately the future. Just you don't want to have it like staged and wait for it like a couple of weeks, months, but you want to have it immediately there. I can also mention one tool which is called Simulon. It was released not a long time ago, where you are able to place a 3D model into an environment. And with AI and with the profound rendering, it immediately makes it look like a very good CGI thing. And that's immediate. And that was released just now. So I think like a lot of use cases of different models, robot, lizards, whatever that is, being put by different creators. And it's kind of immediately, it's almost instant.
So would it be sort of like a lightweight version of the things that you've been doing before?
Exactly. So this tool is kind of what I'm saying, is just a response to say, wow, companies and people really love digital content going into the perspective of the space, of the geospatial space, we spoke about it, but just in any space, like the people love to see, but that's very important, high fidelity content and interact with it possible in the spaces. So the augmented reality right now is a little bit decreasing the visual quality of the content. And that's like the main difference, but ultimately we will get there. We will get to the point where we will be having this kind of content in augmented reality, and people will just love to interact with it and will be happy to interact with it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So you brought up a few things there I want to sort of double click on. The technology is moving so quickly and something new just came out again, right? So there's got to be some challenges there. And I would love to understand, what are some of the challenges or opportunities that you've seen in terms of the adoption of these technologies while you're in the midst of creating and rolling out?
This is like highly experimental field in a way, and it's still fair, although it's old in a way, it's virtual headset or somewhere in the 1968 or something like that, right? So it's not a new topic, but given the progress of the technology, it's fairly new how we are adapting it, right? Like I think only now we are approaching some standardized natural adoption of those technologies. So just comment on that, there are so many challenges that we will need to tackle as an industry, right? We will need to look first at the infrastructure, because for those experiences, having the high fidelity, it's not only about the hardware. It's about the bandwidth, about the connection. It's about being very close to the, for to say 5G or another like source of really high quality data bandwidth that can be provided to your device. That's a huge challenge to tackle. And I think a huge opportunity at the same time for the telco companies and per se for internet providers. The second one is hardware. So we need to get to the hardware where we have a really beautiful glasses to wear on and we are proud to wear them. Like, for example, like beautiful glasses you have, and where you can stream the content into that, or actually even like second step, having those smart lenses. So I think this is a huge kind of challenge, because we know that at a certain time we are getting to the smallest possible sizes of the microchips, and then same time we are expecting a huge performance. So you want something that is light and you want something that performs super well. So I think that's another huge challenge that we are facing as an industry. And the third one is, of course, adaptations of those tools like by the users. So the understanding of those technologies, usability of those technologies, content is out there. To be honest, I think like the 2 points are like the hardest one to tackle. And yeah, therefore I'm very happy that there is like these big players that are in the space and doing this proactive investment, because I think that wouldn't be possible without them.
Yeah, that's a good point, that they have the money for the R&D, right? For the research and development to make things lighter, make things faster, work with maybe even satellite providers to increase the coverage of 5G and more across the globe. Because as you talk about the adoption, you talk about some of the challenges with the hardware and the accessibility, it makes me think about places that are outside of the United States, outside of the UK. Where are those places in terms of being able to access this technology more smoothly, right? Outside of some of our major cities. And that's definitely something to think about. So for a company that may be listening to this podcast right now, maybe there's a brand leader, maybe there's a digital marketing strategist or something like that, a CTO, chief technology officer, and they're hearing this and they're thinking, oh, wow, you know what? This sounds like something cool that we may want to do for our business in tourism or our business in mobile devices or retail or something like that. What would be like maybe the things that they need to think about before they decide to, first of all, choose a technology, then secondly, choose an activation? What are those things that they should be thinking about?
To react on the first part of the question, I would also raise hopes for everyone listening who is also not in those roles, because I would just say in general that those technologies can go both ways, like outside for the external communication and engagement, but also inside of the company, where we see a lot of use cases like the virtual trainings. And so maybe we have someone who will listen, who is like responsible for the HR or trainings, or where it can like make processes and things smoother and better. And for those external, I know, but also for internal, like what they should think of are in general, like the key two things. And the first one is, who are the users we are targeting, right? Or even before that, it's like, what business challenge do we solve, or what we are trying to tackle, right? It's like the increase of sales. Is it the brand awareness? Is it that we want to better connect with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, so the younger generation? So what is the current thing that we want to tackle, the current kind of KPIs that we want to better increase. And then the second thing is then coming to the fact that, okay, who is actually the user group? How they going to use it? What do we know about them? How they interact with our brand so far? So these are like kind of key questions that we always ask to our partners. And we usually, what we do is that because the field is so huge and you can do, I don't want to say the wrong step, but you can save some time by consulting with someone who has been in the field. You can save some time and resources by doing those efficient steps. So what I would say is that, for example, we offer always to our partners like this kind of dedicated workshop where they sit with our CDO, creative director, sometimes myself and other people, like relevant people from the team, to just try to understand their business better and try to understand what we can bring them as a solution. So these kind of dedicated workshops that we do for those companies. And after that, we are offering them like, hey, this is the way of development. Or, for example, you can enter this initiative, like this kind of metaverse, because we know where the users are, we know how to activate them and save some time. So I apologize if I don't give you like the answer that is streamlined, but in a way that's like a more complex process to think about that.
Well, what I heard you say is that you need to do some basic strategy, right? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? Figure that first. Then from what you're trying to solve, and then who is main target for this? And those two questions will help you answer what technology is most appropriate for what you're trying to do, I think is what I heard you say.
Let me give you an example. You say like, okay, I am a particular brand or I'm a particular retailer based in the US. I want to speak more with the Gen Alpha and Gen Z. I want to increase my sales and my footprint with that generation, but we are running the same marketing campaigns that kind of plus minus work for us. Okay, we do a bit of an innovation with like some digital content, but that's it. So what I should do, right? And then we go and we say, okay, so here are the options, right? You can use some metaverse activation, where this metaverse doesn't necessarily need some like virtual purely with a glassy space, whether we are speaking about, let's say, Roblox. We know that in Roblox, these generations are very active in terms of like how they respond on the, if they communicated well and if engaged well, like they respond very well on those activations. We've seen a couple of companies that are very active there or did activations in the past and had positive results. Gucci, for example, with Gucci Garden. We know American Eagle, amazing activation with their new collection. And the people and those users and those kids that go there, and what we can also know from data is that there is a very equal, per to say, like the gender split between the females and males, like in terms of who is playing this game. So it's not like purely that, hey, well, like, okay, boys are playing the game. No, it's very, very equally split. So all of these things, like that brand should kind of access and know to go for it. And one more thing I would just mention is that what we also see is that these new technologies are very, very challenging in terms for the creative. What I mean by that is that we also work with some amazing creative directors, and if you don't know what a technology can and cannot do, it's very hard to create like a new concept, new creative ideas, because you are limited by the knowledge. So for example, how we create creatives or help also big agencies to create creatives for their clients or directly create for the end clients the creative by ourselves, we always combine roles, which is like a very new thing to do. So in our case, it's like we have our CTO with the creative director to prepare the creative for the client, because they need to work together. And although like the creative director has been with us for to say 4 to 5 years, the technology is still so new and the updates are coming almost every month, that they need to have this like very direct connection to the someone who is in that every day. That's just something to mention.
I love that you combine the technology person with the creative person in order to get the best possible result. As a consultant, I've definitely seen that in the past where people are limited in terms of what they think they can do based on the technology and where they think it is, right? They don't realize how far it's actually gone. And I love the example that you use of the Roblox game, which has been very popular among the Gen Z and Alpha audience. And I've seen lots of activations, definitely in the retail space, fashion space. You mentioned Gucci Garden. I know Bloomingdale's had done a big metaverse and fashion activation. It's really cool to see those things happen and how people are interacting with those different environments. So wrapping it up from here now, because we're almost at the end of our time, I'd love to just say if people wanted to learn more about YORD and learn more about these XR technologies, how can they do that?
I would just in general say that it's for all the especially marketing persons who I will be listening to this podcast. Like I really believe it's vital to engage with those technologies, because I'm saying is I think they will be the future of how we interact with the users and with the next generation. So we both experiment a lot and try to do as many things that, starting with some simple filters on Instagram, going through some like full metaverse activations. I think it's just amazing to go for it and understand how your target audience interacts on those space. Regarding this is exactly what we do. So we are trying to help those brands do those first steps. Actually, our claim is that we are leading businesses into immersive reality, because we know that space is quite complex, and we are trying to bring really what matters and make a positive impact, that if the companies try to do something with us, they see the positive results and want to get into this space, want to invest into this space and entering this new field of the world we live in. So we at YORD, we're always happy to speak with you. As I mentioned, we have a team in the US, in New York, but also in the other parts of the world. So you can always reach out to us and check our projects, because I didn't really speak about the concrete use cases and projects. There's many of those in all of those different sub technologies, but you can definitely check that on our website, yordstudio.com, on our or the YouTube channel, Your Studio. We have a lot of visual materials, and please reach out and we'll be more than happy to help or meet in person.
Right. Well, fantastic. Adam Rajnoha, co-founder and CEO of YORD Studios. Thank you very much for joining me today on the 10X Blueprint podcast. And for those of you that have not listened to the other podcast episodes, I definitely encourage you to do that, because I think the combination of knowledge that we are sharing across each of the different episodes definitely build a body of work that allow you to take your business further, faster for 10X growth. Until next time, I'm Simone Knight, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the 10X Blueprint podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and want to stay ahead of the curve on the latest trends in AI, AR, and Web3, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube at Brandiverse Marketing. Together, we'll unlock the blueprint for 10X growth. Don't miss out on our next episode, and until then, onward and upward.